Welcome to the Art and Science of Joy podcast. This podcast is all about inspiring people to live more joyfully. So if you're seeking a bit more joy in your own life or seeking to bring some more joy to the lives of others, then this podcast could well be for you. And welcome to the Year of Joy series, in which I talk to experts on different superpowers, which each and every one of us can cultivate in order to build more joy into our lives. I'm Andrew Cannon, and I have the honor to be your host. And in this episode, I'm excited to be talking with Deborah Rubin about the joy ingredient of mental well-being, and specifically about the joy superpower of embracing change. Over 50 years ago, Deborah's first encounter with yoga ignited a lifelong passion. Yoga, encompassing asanas, breath work, meditation, and philosophy, have been her steadfast companion through countless changes. Deborah is recently co-author of a book, The Voices of 21st Century Women Empowered Through Passion and Purpose, and we will touch on that during our conversation. Welcome to the show, Deborah.
Oh, welcome. Thank you, Andrew. I was really thrilled to be chosen to be on this podcast. And anything that I can do to help people embrace change is like what I'm here for.
So, excellent. Well, it's much needed in today's world, isn't it?
Oh, especially now with the whole world in an upheaval. We really need to access who we are, both assess and access who we are, so that the joy can be there, because the joy is underlying all the time. The joy, believe it or not, the bliss, and in the Vedic tradition, bliss, the word is sukh, and sukh is like our being. It's that expansive feeling. But when you break it down, when you're in that place, you're in that place of joy, you're in the place of bliss. And so it's our birthright.
It's excellent. Excellent. That's a beautiful introduction to where I always like to start in these conversations, which is the personal touch. So if you could tell me and our listeners about your own journey with embracing change.
Well, embracing change. Well, when I graduated, it was, security for the younger years. And then later on, as I look back in my 40s to look back on my life, oh my goodness, there's just been so much change, whether it's living in another city or changing careers or starting a business, letting go of a business. It's just, there was just so much change. And the people around me sort of were watching me going through all this change. They're, pretty stable, been in positions for a long time, living in places for a long time. And here I am going through all this change. That what happened is that I saw and felt that I developed this ability to really listen to my being and know when a change was coming about, and it felt right. Or I could be standing somewhere, like for instance, I was in Fairfield, Iowa, and I had been there for a number of years on an extended meditation, like meditating 7 hours a day. So it was like kind of going into the cave, but it was meditation by day and dancing and theater at night. So it was like, and I just loved Fairfield. I just wanted to be in Fairfield and stay there for as long as I could. And then one day I'm walking out of a store and I looked around and I'm looking at the trees, and it was like, I'm done. I'm done. And it was like, it was right. I didn't fight it because I had felt so wonderful before. It was like, well, I'm done. Okay. I'm on to the new phase. I had just become a teacher of transcendental meditation.
Yeah.
And so, there was that sort of, what's it going to be? But there was a transition. So the universe, the divine, our soul, all those elements of ourselves are constantly communicating to us because we're on our own trajectory. And my trajectory in this particular life, I like to think of it as that way, is my life is about change and transformation. And I didn't get that till I got to a certain point in my life where I could really embrace that whole idea of change. Well, change is evolution. And you even said it, it's inevitable. We can't do anything about it. And so there has been, if you were to look at my life, it was like this, but all those ebbs and flows had joy in them because I trusted. I trusted that I was on the right journey. And it also taught me that what other people think is not important. And that's also one of my life lessons. And so now I'm feeling very secure in understanding that this is who I am and embracing it. And she'll change for everyone comes at the right time. It's know when to listening for it.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Was this always the case, or did, when the younger self, did it ever struggle with this concept of change? Did it ever fight it, or did you feel you always had this ability to embrace it openly and listen and have that ability to hear?
I don't think in my younger years I was out there partying and having a good time and what's going off, and I didn't really have the awareness that from that perspective. But when I turned 24, I started having the question, there's got to be more to this. Like, because I was out partying, I was a stewardess.
Right.
And as much as I was a great stewardess, we also partied. And it was like, that kind of was getting a little tired. And so questions started to seep in. And so at 24, I decided, well, the Beatles were doing transcendental meditation and it was becoming really popular. And I thought, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And so I took up transcendental meditation. That was the start, the spark of my journey. But boy, did I have a long way to go.
Excellent. Absolutely. Such a long way to go, and I'm sure some ups and downs on that way, but the trajectory and that willingness to be open to listen to the messages, we will circle back to that as we discuss today. But I want to dive in a little bit into the, people listening to us, and, we know people in our community, quite a few of them are suffering a little bit with their mental well-being. So how do you see sort of this link between embracing change and mental well-being? How can it help with our joy, and how can it positively not only impact us, but also those around us?
The word just pops up is trust. We are where we are. We're here to learn lessons and evolve. So if you're asked to shift in a way, what's the gift in the shift?
What's the
because
gift?
I just came up with that.
That's nice. It's a nice phrase. That could be a slogan. You could get that trademarked quickly.
What's the gift in the shift? Because when we think of ourselves, we're getting better and better and better, hopefully, as long as we're listening to ourselves and trust that the divine or our soul knows where we're going. But that we also have some challenges that are our own challenges. And it's our kind of agreement with ourselves that when we came into this existence, that, well, I'm going to deal with this so that I can get rid of it. I mean, I really love the idea that this is only one life out of many.
Yeah.
And I don't particularly want to drag into my next life what I'm dealing with this life. I want to experience some new stuff.
There you go.
So it really behooves us to look at the gift and the shift. And the shift is asking us, it's not going to ask us when we're not ready. this shift is going to ask us when we're starting to be ready, and it's going to show up in little ways. Maybe people that we see, or things that we're doing, or things that we're reading, or songs on the radio, or just things come into our life that may be sparking us to think. It doesn't mean we have to act, but it's like getting us ready to consider something a little different. And so patience, right? It's patience and letting go, because there's so much more. There's so much excitement for our lives. We're so wonderful, and keeping ourselves in the same place, it could be really safe for a while, but then is it working? Is it working?
Well, I think, we're not going to talk much about the pandemic today. Hopefully, that a lot of that's behind us. But I think it was one of the gifts that it gave us, was this ability and the time to reflect. And many people came to the conclusion that, no, it's not working for me. I'm not happy with the way my life was before. But, obviously, fast forwarding now, quite few people have actually gone on to make any significant changes. Even so, they were unhappy with where they were before. They've now found themselves being dragged back into the status quo. And there's so much change happening in the world today. So, when that's happening, you would think, wouldn't you, that it's a good strategy to embrace change, right? It seems.
You're saying something really important here, because there's still the gift and the shift. Because now when they go back, if they can go back to where they were, because it's still shifting out, they may leave, they may find, they may need to go back there and experience that to get proof that really they are moving on. Or it's the right place, but there's a shift that needs to blossom to make where they are more joyful. And that's why
that's beautifully said.
And this is what I find is so profound, is the breath. I know you're going to ask me, but throughout my day, I'm constantly going back to my breath, just to get a sense of self, a sense of center. It takes me out of here, and into here. So, do you want me to talk about it now, or should we talk about it later?
We will get into that. We will get into that. I still want to take the listeners on a little bit of a journey about the fear of change, because, I love the quote by Maya Angelou, who says that, we can't, change is inevitable, but we can change our attitude. But still, so many people seem to fear that change and struggle in changing their attitude. And so why do you think that is? What's preventing people from embracing the change?
The unknown. Ta-da!
The unknown.
The unknown. It's just what? Well, I don't know. I don't know what's going to come. And so we spend our life going along in a certain way, and we feel very safe, and we know what we're doing, and we've got the way we get up and brush our teeth and wash our face and have a shower and go with this and do that. We go to work and so we know the trajectory. And if a change is coming on, it's like, well, what's going to happen? Am I going to be able to make money? Am I able to feed myself, my family? Am I going to have the thing? I don't want to lose the things that I've got. So there's this huge thing called the unknown. But if you can gently develop a relationship with the unknown, then it too can become a safe place.
And I suppose that brings you back to where you started at the word trust or faith. That you need to do that, right? You need to have a certain degree of trust that everything is as it should be, everything will be as it should be, and you don't have to worry about it
Yes.
at that level. And I think that's hard for
Yeah.
some people, as we're told. I remember the phrase as growing up that better the devil you know than the devil you don't, right?
That came for me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, for me, what the question would come up to ask myself, well, am I truly, honestly, deeply doing what I'm meant to be doing in this life?
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. It'll take us a little bit off script, but that's always fun. Um, the challenge I have, and I have an actual post-it note in one of my closets, which simply asks, "Who am I?" And to me, it's a fundamental question because I have these different voices, and sometimes I struggle to differentiate, which is my ego maybe trying to protect me or trying to guide me in a certain direction, and which is a real voice I should be listening to, which is my inner child, which is the universe speaking to me. All these different voices in my head, and sometimes I do struggle, I think, to differentiate them from each other. So I don't know if you have any guidance on how you can do that.
So my name for ego is Edgar Ego. Edgar has a great time nattering and telling me what I should be doing, and it's like, he's like, give me a break, will you? Because it takes me all over the. I'm sorry, I call him a he. I just sort of he takes me off, and in fact, I've got a little video on YouTube about ego, Edgar Ego. But when we get into our heart and learn how to listen from our heart, then it shifts all that. And the same thing that we're kvetching about, complaining about, has a different quality to it if we're willing to sit and be. And then the joy from the heart gives it a different perspective and a broader perspective, and it leaves us with the joy, so that we have to make a decision.
Yeah.
And I'm saying this as if it's a fait accompli. That's a journey. It's an art. It's an art.
It's an art. And I'm sure as we discuss a little bit further, and then obviously, within the platform, in the community, you'll be sharing obviously some ways that people can do a better job at listening to their heart, and some practices that they can work on. But let's talk about the book. I mean, because that's always an exciting thing as somebody who started a book and never got there. Sort of a little author inside still going, great job for you for getting it out there. Voices of the 21st Century, Women Empowered Through Passion and Purpose. And your chapter was called Revolving Doors, The Universe is Your Partner. Lovely title. I read it and loved the article and can recommend it highly. But can you expand, what do you mean by the universe is our partner, and how can it help us embrace change?
Okay, so I just want to just say there was 45 women who wrote their trials to tribulations stories, and there's some very moving ones. There's different types of stories. And immediately when I was asked to write my chapter, I just knew that the change being, in fact, I'm writing a book on my own, a solo book on change. And because I've had numerous, in line with the change and trusting, I've had numerous stories how I went from one element of my life to another. So the doors were opening, the doors were closing, the doors were opening, the doors were closing. And the doors, they just keep opening and closing in a way for me. And, could be like, I had this company that I built up, I was passionate about. It's called Yoga Spirit. It was teaching yoga teachers continuing education program, international teachers. And it was developing, and that's when webinars were coming in, and so there was some beautiful stories of myself listening, because one day I'm seeing that there's a lot of competition coming on in that field.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, oh, do I actually have a company? Okay. And then I saw this word just float across the ceiling. It was an intuitive word, right? It wasn't a flag. And it was a feeling and it was a knowing. And I just grabbed it and said, this is for me. And so I just kept on and on and building. And I did build the company, and then the company through the 2008 downturn
Right.
went, and I went with it. And so it was like, oh, this is my dream. This is my dream to build this out.
Yeah.
Well, I had to let it go. But something else came in, and that's when I went to Fairfield. And I was going for 3 months to figure out what the heck am I going to do with the rest of my life. And that 3 months turned into 2.5 years. It was, I'd say, one of the best times of my life. And because I was getting this deep rest, but also having activity.
Yeah.
I never thought it would end, but that too segued into becoming a teacher of transcendental meditation. And so there's a lot of segues. So I wrote about that, and there was a point where just before becoming a teacher of TM, I was there to find out, well, what am I doing? What am I going to be doing in this next phase? So something would be coming up, and I'd go, oh, this is exciting. Go and do a little bit of research on it, and then go the next couple of days. Oh, I forgot about it.
Right.
But it had no life to it. It had no pizzazz. It didn't have anything that was in alignment. To me, it was just a thought. It was probably flowing over to somebody else.
Yeah.
And I happened to grab it. So I decided, and I needed to come up with a lot of money because I was bankrupt, right? I didn't have any money. I was living in a room like this on a retreat, and because I'm on a retreat right now, and so within 6 weeks, I had $16,000 to pay for the course fee and the course and everything. Of course, it was one of the most profound times of my life, because I needed to step out of the way of my ego saying, can you do this? You can't do. And in fact, in the book, my sisters say, we like what you're doing, but like, oy vey, asking for money, that's just not real. And a couple of other people making comments, and I thought, oh, what am I doing here? Am I doing the right thing? And then I went into my room and opened up the computer, and there was ping, 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 ping from PayPal saying I had money.
Yeah, fantastic.
And I stood up and I just opened my heart, and it was like I heard the voice, that sweet whisper. This is more than you. It's not about you. So that was a profound moment where it kind of taught me I'm here as a servant. I'm going to be helping people by teaching them to meditate. So it's not about me. I'm just the vehicle. Yeah. And I think in a way we're all like that. We're all vehicles on our way to something grander.
Yeah. I love to think that, and I know from the research that we've done and from working with the community for the last year, that it's hard to get to that stage when you're struggling yourself, either emotionally, mentally, financially. It becomes hard to think of yourself as a service to others when you feel you can't even serve yourself. And then there's negative voices, as you say, maybe your partner's saying, oh, you could never do that. Or, an old friend is saying, no, I remember who you were. You never amounted to anything at school, your teacher used to say, right? Yeah, so people have those sort of things, those voices not only their ego, their inner critic, but there's also external critics that they have to deal with as they try and find this peace within them and listen to that inner voice. And I loved your quote, change is the universe nudging you onto greatness. Trust your inner voice. And we already talked about the ego and how you can distinguish. So I know a lot of our listeners that have got to the stage where they're saying, "Come on, Deborah, tell me how to do it. What can I do? Share some of your wisdom." And I know it's not, probably a blue pill or a red pill they can swallow to get there. So what have you learned, on your own journey and from working with everybody in this space about embracing change? What are some of your favorite tips to help people become better at embracing it?
Listening and hearing to that sweet whisper. Now that can be a challenge. But our soul is always talking to us through the universe. I mean, we're not unto ourselves. And that's why I like the word dharma. I don't know if you've heard the dharma. Dharma, you could say it's purpose, but it's in alignment with everything else. It's not just solo. It's like this orchestration of the whole universe, and we're one of those little threads in the universe moving along. And so we're connected to everyone else. And when you mentioned, sometimes people don't support you. Well, that's the cue to get out, right? Because the universe wants you there to experience that experience of how it is when it's not comfortable and it's negative. But that's not your dharma. That's not life. That's an experience.
Yeah.
It's a lesson. And so what's the gift and the shift? So it's moving along to the next place and using the tools, whatever you have. I use the breath. I use body feeling, because when we get this this feeling, then the ego or something is not right, of course the emotions are going to come up, and it could be in the heart, it could be in the gut, it could be in the throat, it could be in the head, it could be anywhere. And so feeling the body is a way of dissipating it. So I know we'll go on into that when I teach those sessions. And then in the listening, so the listening has a part. It's listening, but it's also hearing. Because if you listen to something, it's great. You can listen to it, but you can go deeper and you can hear. If you get into your body, and you can, if you don't understand what head and body is, you will if you just have a few moments. You don't need to do it all the time. You just shift into the breath in the body, into the heart, or somewhere into the body, the lungs moving. Then you can start listening and hearing. Sometimes, I mean, everybody's got intuition. Everybody has intuition. Are you listening to it? And I did a little research with my students, and a lot of them don't trust their intuition. And so there is that, and some of them do, but then sometimes they don't, but they hear it or feel it. So intuition comes in different forms. Sometimes it can come loud and clear and smack you across the face. Other times it can just be a sense of knowing. It's just a sense of knowing. And that was the case with going in Fairfield when I thought I was leaving.
Yeah.
That was a knowing. That was full body. And it's taking moments each day to just be. To just be and connect. And when the discomfort comes up, because it probably will, is that you just stay with the feeling and you know that it's going to pass.
Yeah.
Because we're all being asked, especially now, because it almost feels like Everybody's heard of the statement, we're all connected. Well, on a deeper level, and that's what Dharma is we're deeply all connected. Trees, bunny rabbits, people, everything is connected. And if you think about what's going on in the world right now, there is a profound shift, because it's like everything's being thrown out. So we're not the only ones that are being asked to change. It's like it's like, geez, I hope we make it, because there's some major resistance. So if we can do our part on being the best that we can and finding out what's the best way for me to be and bring in that element of joy, because if we're in joy, we're in the right place. That's the cue.
Yeah.
Joy, right place. Then we can do our part, as simple as it is helping change the world.
Yeah.
Because we're being kind to people. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, then that's it, isn't it? I mean, I think it's, and whether that's, as you say, through, working with your breath, whether that's through, meditation, stillness, or, other practices, feeling into your body, as you talked about, getting out of your head, listening to that voice, and then knowing when that feeling of joy that comes when you make that connection, and it doesn't have to be grand. I think somebody wise said to me, that there's only so many people who can lead. There's only so many people who can even follow in a collective manner. But everybody has a role to play individually in how they show up and the energy that they bring to the party. And even if that's all you're doing is just focusing on your little world and bringing in your energy to be the best you can, that's good enough, right? You don't need to be.
That is your role.
Yeah.
It's your dharma, because you're in one plane, you're doing one thing and another. We have so many planes that we live in. So it's kind of unifying them all. And when it's also learning about the qualities of feelings that you're feeling, is to be able to somehow differentiate them. And that's a journey too. Yeah. So it is about taking it easy, just taking it easy and being more mindful, having awareness of what's showing up. What's showing up in your life? Is it a lot of good things showing up? Are there a lot of weird things showing up? Is it a mixture? Like, what's showing up? What is being brought to you? What are you attracting? Right. Because what you're attracting is well, we all know this, the law of attraction, but it's by, if you like what's coming, then do more, bring joy. Yeah. If you don't like what's coming, that's when you got to cut it off and start a new trajectory and allow the divine to come through and speak to you, because it's always there. It's not there. It's not there. It's always there. It's just, can I hear it? Yeah. Can I feel it? So joy is the indicator.
There you go. And that is a perfect place for us to wrap up today. and I think, our listeners have hopefully got some good inspiration, and obviously there's going to be much more in the community that we can practically help and guide people on this journey, knowing that they're not alone, and wonderful teachers like you, Deborah. Thank you so much for the work you're doing. The final question I always like to ask our guests is very simply, what brings you joy?
What brings me joy is breathing and meditation, because then I can go out from there in a more grounded place and open my heart. So, but on the physical level, I love to dance. And I love this. Yeah. I love sharing. I love sharing my heart. That's my dharma, is I love sharing my heart. through the fact that I'm sharing it through experience. And I hope that I can make a difference. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, you're making a difference today, so thank you so much for that. It's been a pleasure and a joy chatting with you, Deborah. And I hope you, our listeners, enjoyed this podcast episode as much as I have, and hope you feel inspired to cultivate the joy superpower of embracing change. If so, please check out the show notes for links to Deborah and her resources. If you're already a member of the Year of Joy communities, please pop in to explore more of Deborah's inspiring and empowering content that we've got there. Lots of good treats for you. And if you're not a member of the Year of Joy community, please visit our website, theartandscienceofjoy.com, to find out more on how to join. It's a free and fun resource, and it's full of great stuff to help you grow your joy muscles. So thanks once again for listening. And I hope you tune in for the next episode of the Art and Science of Joy podcast. Until then, stay well, stay joyful, and embrace the change.
Yes.